Today, I'd like to specifically talk about dating in the 30s. Why is it so easy for a man in his 30s, but so difficult for a woman in their 30s? Arguably, it is the most important decade for dating, actually, for both sexes. And I want to cover the reasons that it's so easy for a man and so difficult for a woman. So, in case we haven't met, my name's Luanne Ward. I am a dating and relationship expert for over 25 years. I have been a professional matchmaker for nearly 3 decades also. So, I want to talk about why dating in your 30s is so important. It is the most important decade for dating. I know I've said that, and I'll probably say it another 2 or 3 times during the course of this video. So there's 3 main reasons that there's going to seem like there's a male shortage in your 30s. And as much as it's easy enough to get out on dates, there's so many apps, you have so many choices. And so setting up the dates is very, very easily, but you're usually attracting emotionally unavailable men, or men who don't know what they want, or men who don't want to have children just yet. They think they've got all the time in the world. And to a degree, they have a lot more time on their hands because they don't have a biological clock ticking. So for a man in their 30s, there's a lot more scope that they have. You've got to remember that in the 20s, women will date outside of their 20s. Okay, so for a woman, she'll happily date a guy that's 5, 6, 7 years older than her while she's in her 20s because they're usually established. They're usually living away from home. They've got a better income source so they can go out and do more fun things. If you haven't seen my last video, which is why younger men are attracted to older women, I really recommend that you actually have a watch of that video because it's going to help explain how this came about, how men in their 30s now actually have all these extra options. So I'm going to pop the link below so you can actually check out that video as well. But for a woman in her 30s, being established, you're set up, you have your career, you have your finances together, you have a great circle of friends, you've traveled, you've achieved a lot of the things that you set out to achieve. The realization that you have all these things that you set out to do and you have a great life, but there's that one piece missing. And it's difficult when a lot of your friends are all getting married and having children and you think, wow, what's wrong with me? Why can't I find someone? Where are all the men? Dating apps and online dating present so many opportunities. So meeting men isn't the problem. Meeting a man that you have things in common with, that actually wants to have a family. And as you approach your mid to late 30s, you don't have time to waste on relationships that aren't going anywhere. And unfortunately, what happens is that a lot of women in their 30s, they get out on dates and they want to fast track everything. So this is one of the main reasons that men in their 30s are not dating women in their 30s. So if you look from a man's perspective, and guys, I'm sure that you're going to resonate and agree with this, that dating someone in their 30s can sometimes feel like a whole load of pressure. You go out on the first date, second date, third date, and the conversation is going to come up. So, hey, where do you see yourself in the future? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to have kids? And I know that that's an important aspect and it's an important question to ask. But in the early stages of dating, it is a confronting question for a man. There's a lot of pressure. So you might meet somebody that you think, oh, he's amazing. And he might think the exact same thing of you. And you start dating and there comes 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. And you want to know, where are we going? Where's this heading? So you kind of ask the guy, well, where is this heading? Do you see us together? And it's not just you asking that question. It's every woman, men in their 30s are dating, that are asking that question. So for a guy who just wants to take things as they come, and it's not to say that they don't want to be in a relationship and they don't want all those things, but it's a lot of pressure to jump into a relationship and it doesn't have a natural flow. Because what's happening in the woman's mind is you girls are thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to find somebody. I've got to settle down. I really want to have kids. All my friends are having kids. My sisters have got kids. My brothers have got kids. And I really want this. And Why can't I find somebody? What's wrong with me? And girlfriends and your parents and a lot of people around you will say, maybe you're being too fussy, or maybe you intimidate men. Men are intimidated. You're a beautiful girl. You can find anybody. But for the girl that's searching for somebody, that's not so easy. But ladies, there is a definite reason why it's so difficult, because men in their 30s, they have the ability to date women in their 20s. Okay, so you remember when you're in your 20s and you're dating men that are a little bit older than yourself. So these men that are in their 30s, they have access to women that are in their 20s. Young girls are just happy to take it as it comes. There's no pressure for the guy in his 30s when he's dating a younger woman that's in her 20s, because she's usually just in the moment, having fun, where you were 5, 10 years ago, perhaps even 15 years ago, that it wasn't a big rush to settle down. So guys that are looking for that light-hearted, fun sort of relationship, it's not that they're afraid of commitment, but it's just easier with a girl in their 20s. They're also usually in good shape and they look fantastic, and men are quite visual. So having that aspect is also attractive to them. So they've got access to girls in their 20s. Clearly, they've got access to women that are in their 30s as well. So they can date girls in their 30s. This is not the problem, but a lot of them are choosing not to. And the other aspect is that they can also date women that are in their 40s. So men have got really 3 decades of women to choose from. And for a guy in his 30s, dating a woman in her 40s, or a friends with benefit, a cougar, whatever you might want to label that, for him, he doesn't have any of the pressures of dating a girl in their 20s who can often be a bit full of drama and can be a little bit more needy and emotionally needy and a little bit more demanding. The girl in her 30s, they want to fast track everything and move things along quickly, so there's a lot of pressure there. But a lady that's in her 40s that's potentially not wanting to have children or has already been married, divorced, has children, it's a very easy place for a man to be, because there's usually little drama. She's not demanding of his time. They're usually matched in the libido department as well. So you have men that have got access to women that are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so, ladies, you do actually have the opportunity to do exactly the same thing. I think there's a lot of women in their 30s when it comes to choosing a partner and considering a long-term relationship. You might consider someone that's a little bit older, but you've got to remember that a lot of men in their 40s actually already have children. There is a range of them that don't, but a lot of them do. And I don't know about your own individual preferences, but I can tell you as a matchmaker for nearly 3 decades, most women, the majority of women that are in their 30s, prefer not to meet a man that's already got kids. You'll hear the comments like, but I want to be the first. I don't want to, meet somebody that's already got kids because, I want to have that special experience with a man. So I don't kind of want to meet somebody that's got kids. That makes a lot of sense. So it does rule out a lot of men in their 40s. The other thing is that you're going to have men in their late 40s, and this is a growing group of men that are available that a lot of girls in their 30s are overlooking. And this is a group of men that were in their 30s and weren't in a rush to settle down. They weren't in a rush to have a family and to get married, and they get to their 40s, they're still having a great time because, they can date women in their 40s and women in their 30s. But there comes a time where once a man gets to about 45, and if he hasn't had children, he starts thinking, oh gosh, okay, so what if I don't have kids? And even though he loves his bachelor lifestyle, don't get me wrong, it's a very hard thing to give up for a lot of guys. There will come a time often in a man's life when he gets to that 45 to 50 age bracket where it all of a sudden becomes super important, about as important it is to a woman in that same age group, but a decade before. So woman, this is an age group that you can really consider somebody that's above 45 that doesn't have kids of his own, because you're going to be at that exact same place on the road of wanting to make that commitment. So you won't have to do all those awkward conversations of, sort of what's the time frame that you might want to have kids. There's also other advantages to dating an older man, and that's clearly they're more established. They've had enough relationships to know what they like and what they don't like. They've been, I don't want to use the word trained by other women because that sounds terrible, but I think that, every relationship we have, we all learn, we all grow, we all understand each other a little bit better the more experiences we've had. So a man in that age group does tend to have a high level of emotional maturity. They're usually able to give and take and be flexible. And as I said, they're going to be at the same place in the journey. Also, ladies, there's just as much opportunity for you to date a younger man as there is for a younger man to date an older woman. Okay, so if you think that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get involved with somebody that's in their 20s because they're not going to be ready to settle down, there's a lot of guys in that age group that are very much family orientated. It's a high value of theirs. The ones that you're going to meet on the apps that are dating a whole pile of girls and they like the thrill of the chase, that they might not be them. But correct me if I'm wrong. It's an age group that you generally wouldn't consider. A woman of 35 doesn't usually say, oh, gee, I'm happy to date someone that's a decade younger. If she's 45, she's quite happy to date a decade younger. But in your 30s, if you haven't had kids, you generally won't consider a man that's a decade younger than you. And I'm here to tell you that you're missing out on massive opportunities. And that age gap, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, they're doable age gaps. So ladies, open your mind. You are working with a smaller pool of men because they're dating over 3 decades. So either you need to start considering doing the same thing yourself, or it is you are really limiting your opportunities there. So there's 3 main reasons why it's difficult to find a man in their 30s. I think the important thing to remember is it doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, there's different phases in life and there's different stages that you're going to go through. And finding a partner is a really important part of some people's lives at some stages, and it's not so important at other people's lives in other stages. And you will more than likely go through all of these stages yourself. If you are somebody that has a very high value in family and children and what have you, and you get married when you're very young. I say very young because anything under 25 seems very young to me, but there's a lot of people that have been married for 20 years and they're only 40 or their early 40s. They come out of that situation and they're in a different stage of their life. So know who you are and know what stage of life you're in. Consider things that you want aren't just age related, but that decade of the 30s, if you don't get this decade in your 30s right, you don't get the do-over. You're not able to go back and do that because there's only windows of opportunities for you to find a mate that you can have children with, and take it seriously enough to look at all of your options and don't limit yourself and don't pigeonhole what relationships may work and may not work based on what society tells you should or shouldn't have. If I'm a 32-year-old woman, I should have a man up to the age of 38. He shouldn't have been married before. He should want all the same things and he should be ready to commit. It's an unrealistic fantasy. So broaden your mind, look outside of the square. But don't take the fun out of dating by trying to find out too much too soon and not being able to go with the flow a little bit. So share your comments below. What are your belief systems around age? Can an age difference work in a relationship? So thanks for tuning in, everyone, and I look forward to reading all your questions and comments, and I will see you all again next week.